thought, I can fix that. I can change that. He's just stressed. Very much a womanizer, very much all of that, but I can change that. They were all there. It was all there. It was just my own blinders, truly. And if somebody's listening that they're in a relationship and they're talking about that, and there's things that they're doing, that's not going to change. If they're criticizing you, if they're trying to control you, it's only going to get worse.
Hi all, it's Zoe here. Thanks for hanging out with me again today and joining the Surviving with Zoe podcast, a conversation where amazing inspirational survivors from all walks of life share their personal stories and expert advocates educate you, our audience, in order to break stigmas and taboos regarding mental health and trauma. Kind of like free therapy and permission to always give yourself grace and compassion as we are ultimately all just surviving every day. Before we dive in, we would like to add a trigger warning for anyone that is vulnerable to particular issues. Please pause if needed and check out our timestamps in our description if you would like to skip ahead. Lastly, if you could please hit the subscribe button below and follow us on Spotify, Apple, Instagram, and TikTok. We would really appreciate it since we are a new podcast. We need all the love we can get, and of course, we want to amplify our guests' voices too. Today's guest on Surviving with Zoe is LisaBeth Thomas, once the powerhouse behind a thriving advertising and production agency. She found herself at rock bottom after divorce, financial collapse, and the loss of nearly everything that she has built. She also is a domestic violence advocate, but she didn't stay there. LB rebuilt from the ground up using grit, self-discovery, and an unshakable refusal to let fear define her. Today, she is a keynote speaker, author, and media professional dedicated to empowering others, especially women who've experienced trauma, to reclaim confidence, take bold action, and see their setbacks not as dead ends, but as turning points. She's also the founder of a non-profit movement that uses education and relationships to lift women up, and launched a meaningful initiative aimed at protecting children online by educating families and communities about exploitation. Welcome to Surviving with Zoe LB.
Thank you. I'm just exhausted hearing that bio. Yeah. But when you write your own bio, you sound really great. So, yeah.
You've lived a full life. I think
I have, and I'm not done yet.
I think everyone listening is very interested, but I agree it can be tiring to hear everything you've done in your life at once. So thank you for agreeing to be on this podcast. I've been really excited to talk to you as there's so many topics of survival to cover. I would love to start with your divorce and where you hit rock bottom and you lost everything. So in your own words, LB, can you go ahead and take us back to that time of your life and what happened?
I don't know if any of your your audience has ever been through this, but I knew when I was marrying my last husband, and I said last because I had a couple, that I shouldn't marry him. I knew it. I knew it going into it. I was like, I can change him. I can make up for it. I can people please. No. And I joke when I say I wanted to marry so badly, I married so badly. And I did. And going into it, knowing it, and there was just nothing I could do to fix it, because there really isn't. You can't fix anybody else. You can only control and fix here. So he joined me. I had a production company, and then he joined me, and we had advertising and production, and we had all the great iconic Austin businesses. We had an international client. We had some national clients. We were doing really, really well. I had no idea that behind the scenes, he was talking to the team about me. He was telling clients I was a whore, all kind, but I didn't know, but I knew it was miserable. The emotional abuse was just horrible. And I
Right.
didn't want a divorce again, and so I just kept praying he would have a heart attack and a change of heart. And then I got to the point where I was just like, just have a heart attack. I mean, it was so miserable.
Yeah.
But our kids were really bonded. We didn't have kids together, but our kids were best of friends. They were very bonded. We had clients, we had employees. And so I just didn't want the mess. And, but then it got to the point where I had to get out because there was nothing I can do. Well, then during the divorce, it all came to a head when he had failed. He used to be a bank president. He had failed to file 3 years of our personal taxes.
Mm,
And anybody out there that knows it's interest and penalties daily. And I'm
right.
not talking like the year before, I'm talking 9, 10, 11 years prior. I mean, so crazy amount of money. Well, he went ahead and I was keeping the business, and he filed hardship with the IRS. So he had to pay $50 a month and I had to pay the rest.
Mm,
And I'm talking, you know, 150, $160,000 worth of interest and penalties.
right.
And so when I would get money in for media buy or client money, the IRS would go, "Oh, great." Whoop, whoop, whoop. And I wasn't mad at the IRS. It was reality. But I was doing everything I could to keep that house of cards stable, and I just couldn't do it. Part of it was, though, is that I'd lost my confidence. I'd lost my self-esteem. I felt so beat up emotionally in every way. So
Mm,
people would say to me, go out there and go get new business. And I was like, I can't. If
yeah.
I go get new business, their money's going to go that way. So I knew I couldn't do that. So finally, I had to close the business. And so from May 1st to August 17th, I lost my business, I lost my home, and my mom died. Three and a
Oh,
half
I'm
month period.
sorry.
3.5 month period. I was like, are you kidding, God? Are you
Mhm.
kidding? And so I was homeless for 6 months. And the thing is my kids, luckily, my oldest was married and my other two were up at college. So they weren't there to be homeless, but they were losing their home. And my friends and inner circle knew, my clients obviously knew, um, but nobody knew how bad it was. I didn't want to tell anybody. I was too
Mm,
embarrassed.
mhm.
Um, and I'm sure I don't want to say I'm sure you can, but I'm sure there's people out there that get it. My business was my identity.
Yeah.
Yeah. I worked with Sandra Bullock. I worked on movie sets. I worked for Disney. We did all kinds of really cool things.
Right.
And I was the founding president of Texas Women in Business. So there
Yeah.
were several hundred women that were looking at me as success.
Right.
And I failed in every single area of my life.
That's
So,
interesting that you say that you failed because, like, from an outside perspective, I see it as a unfortunate series of events that created this downfall,
yeah,
but I can also see the shame that you would have felt and blaming yourself and
right.
also being beaten down by the emotional abuse and then having your identity stripped away from you, and then I'm sure your mum passing, which, by the way, thank you for sharing with me, um, would definitely have taken you to rock bottom. So I just wanted to point that out for you that I don't see it as a failure.
Well,
Um,
thank you.
but
Thank
I,
you.
I know that it's easy to blame
Yeah,
yourself.
it totally is, because I failed at marriage again. I
Mm,
failed at this business. I lost my home, so it was like, but I was blaming everybody else. And
okay.
and that's part of my key that finally turned me around. And
Hmm.
so I want to just tell a quick story. So
Hmm.
like I said, just a couple of my friends knew. And one of my dear friends, Melinda Garvey, she was the founder of Austin Women Magazine, asked me to go to Galveston for the weekend. And I went, I can't go to Galveston. I don't even have I'm living on couches. I don't have any money. I can't go. And she said, well, I will pay. We'll just eat whatever in the refrigerator at the house. We'll drink whatever on the shelves. We won't do anything. So we go down, and Saturday night, I say to her, I want to go and walk on the beach and talk to God. Sunday
Hmm.
morning, sunrise, because honestly, I'm pissed off at God. So this was
Mhm.
not going to be a nice conversation. This was going to be like, you son of a, are you kidding me? So I
Mhm.
get up, I go down. It's a beautiful morning. Sun was coming up, and I literally, Zoe, am yelling at God on the
Mhm.
beach, saying,
Mhm.
and I said out loud, you parted the Red Sea, right? Manna from heaven, water to wine, which would be
Mhm.
lovely right now if you would give me water to wine, because I got nothing. And then I realized, well, maybe I'm down here because maybe there's an engagement ring or a wallet
Mhm.
washed up on the beach, or maybe there's a Rolex that somebody dropped. Literally, I was like, where is it? So I get up, I start walking down the beach. I'm looking under seaweed. I'm looking in the water for money. I'm looking for something because I have nothing. And um, 30 minutes into it, not a thing. And I went, are you kidding me, God? Really? You can't just drop something on the beach for me. And I said out loud, God, show me the treasure on the beach. And as clear as day, I've never heard it before, and I've never heard it since. I heard, oh, LisaBeth, you are the treasure on the beach.
Mhm.
And I turned around because I was like, because I had said it out loud, and I turned around to see if somebody was behind me, and nope. And I went back, told my friend, and I still didn't get what that meant,
Yeah.
because I was so beaten up. So then I go to Austin, and some sort of luncheon at the Country Club for Texas Women in Business, and there's 200 women there. I'd founded it, 10 years ago, 5 years. I've been 5 years or so prior to that, and so I go up on stage, and I have my mask on, and I'm faking, I'm lying,
Yeah.
everything's okay, and people were like, "Hey, how you doing?" I am great. How are
Yeah.
you? I'm good.
Mhm.
And I get up on stage. And actually, a friend of mine, when I'm getting ready to go on stage, she said, "What's wrong?" I said, "Nothing." She goes, "You're lying. Your eyes are dead. I know you're lying." So I go up on stage to do a presentation to introduce somebody. And so I look out at these 200 women that I know have me on a pedestal because I started this organization. I have a production company. I'm success in their minds.
Mhm.
And I just went, I have something to tell you. And I verbally vomited what was going on. I told them everything. And while I'm telling 200 women, because I couldn't lie anymore,
Yeah.
when I'm telling them, I'm thinking, here comes my judgment. I'm going to be judged. And when I
Mhm.
got done, not a peep. Nobody clapped. Nobody said anything. And I went, well, there it is. And then
Mhm.
they started clapping. And then I got a standing ovation. And it was a
Mhm.
long standing ovation, and not as long as Pope Leo, because his was really great. But I mean, but it was long enough for me to wipe the tears and get off stage. And the turning point for me was walking off the stage, and there was probably 15, 16 women lined up to say, if you can tell your story, I can. I need to file bankruptcy. I need to get divorced. I'm
Yeah.
anorexic and I haven't told anybody. But thank you for sharing, because if you could do it, I can do it.
Yeah.
And I know that was a long way to get to the story, but it was so critical because we have to tell our story.
Yes. And I just, first of all, wow, like I'm just so moved, and everything that you've said is so profound. And I've been taking so many notes because I have so many questions. Um, but I just want to take a minute to just acknowledge the courage that it took to tell your story while were in the midst of this struggle, because I know personally, I have not told my story throughout my life up until a certain point. It took me years of courage, and I know a lot of other survivors from different walks of life have to build up that courage. And I really think that obviously your relationship with religion and yourself, and being on the beach and hearing that you are the treasure, to me that clicked like immediately. Like it was like, oh, your vulnerability is the treasure, right? Like, so the fact that you got up there and you were just brutally honest about what you were going through, I mean, I could definitely see how you would feel like people would judge you in that moment. But I think a lot of people are fighting battles very silently that we don't know about. So,
Exactly.
so when you were up there and you took the mask off, and you're the founding president, like you said, these women are putting you on a pedestal, um, and you're about to tell the truth about where you're at. Was there a moment of grief for the old identity of LB that you were going to lose?
Yeah, that's a good question. It was because now I wasn't, I loved having that, you know, that status. And I know that sounds egotistical, but it was. It's like I'd walk in a room and people be like, LB, and I thought, like I said, here it comes. I'm going to be judged. And I thought,
Mhm.
I'm going to lose it all. They're going to look at me differently, treat me differently, whatever. And so, yeah, there was grief in that. Little did I know there was more respect.
Yeah, I mean, I just find it so interesting. We spend a lot of our life in shame, and hiding, and like you said, wearing a mask. But it's when we step into our authenticity that, not like, what's the worst that could happen, because you've laid it all out there. And that's the power. It's like, no one can really hurt you if you've said all the worst things about
Yeah,
yourself.
yeah,
So,
take aim. There's nothing left. Go,
and
Right.
then yes, there is grief of losing who you were and being a role model for these women in a different way. But it sounds like when you stepped into your authenticity, that instead of being that type of role model, you became a different type of role model for these women, and that gave you actually more of a mission in life to live authentically, and help others. So, like, it's, life
Right.
is, everything happens for a reason. And thank you for sharing that with me. I do want to backtrack a little,
Okay.
because we're taught we talked a little bit about your divorce and when you met your husband and you had a gut feeling. And I think that this is really interesting, because I honestly haven't interviewed a lot of women that have had that gut feeling before getting in a relationship. It's usually afterwards, like, when the narcissistic abuse of any kind rears its ugly head. So, what were some of the feelings that you were having, even if they didn't make sense, that your body was like, and your mind or your soul was like, I don't want to get married? Like, what did that feel like for anyone listening that might be going through the same thing?
There was warning. There were red flags all along. Being verbally abusive,
Mm-hmm.
he never physically hurt the children, but
Mm-hmm.
he was mean. He was negative. It was not a positive. Um, there was constant put downs. There was just this constant negativity. And even before we were married, when he would be at our house or at my place, and I'd be bringing the kids home from school, and they were like 10,
Mm-hmm.
8 and 7. I don't remember how old they were out there, but my son would say, is he there? Is he going to be there? And I didn't realize that it was a negative. I wasn't paying attention.
Yeah.
And, but like I said, I just thought, I can fix that. I can change that.
Right.
He's just stressed.
Mm-hmm.
Very much a womanizer, very much all of that, but I can change that. They were all there. It was all there. It was just my own
Mm-hmm.
blinders, truly.
Yeah.
And if somebody's listening that they're in a relationship and they're talking about that, and there's things that they're doing, that's not going to change.
Mm-hmm.
If they're
So, like,
criticizing you, if they're trying
right.
to control you, it's only going to get worse.
Yeah. And like you said, like, seeing how other people are reacting, like your children, seeing that they're walking on eggshells, and it's like, he seems to be the common denominator with that. So looking out for that. And I do find it interesting when we talk about abusers or narcissists. Something that people don't pay a lot of attention to is that they don't believe that they have any rules and that they're above the law. So
Yeah.
is this the same partner that you went through all of these tax
Yes.
issues with? Right.
Yes.
So, and I've
He
seen this.
disagreed. He disagreed with what we owed. So just not, and again, and
Yeah.
there is a point in time, and I don't think I've ever shared this, but there is a
Hmm.
point in time that, hey, buds, that the woman IRS agent who was trying to help us navigate,
Yeah.
and I'm going to swear, so I apologize ahead of time. I'm going to swear,
Go
but
ahead.
maybe I'll see. It'll come by memory how he said it. And she called me, and I answered the phone. She said, "Can we only work with you?" And I said, "Why? Are you a stupid bitch?" And she
Hmm.
goes, "Yes, I am, according to your ex-husband." And I
Wow.
said, and I was like, "Who tells the IRS that they're
Literally.
stupid?"
And it sounds like he had a lack of respect for women and authority.
Absolutely,
Um,
absolutely,
and being a womanizer as well, like breaking all these rules, like in life, like there's no rule book for this individual.
right.
So like if anyone's listening and they're thinking like, oh, it's not a big deal that this person doesn't, pick up after their pet or like litter or like something very small or like, uh, hit
If
someone's
they're
car
if
or
they're rude
something.
if they're rude
Yeah,
to wait staff, if they're rude to
exactly.
wait staff or somebody that's serving or trying to help, that's a good red flag.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's important to point out. So also, something I would love to talk about is what when you said that you were blaming everybody else. And, at first you also said that you felt like a failure. And I pointed out, no, those are things that happen to you. And so I'd love to talk about, like, it sounds like you took responsibility, like, for the things going on in your life and that you stopped blaming others. So you are able to say, no, that was a failure. Can you talk me through how you're able to be that honest with yourself? Because that's a lot of people's worst fears, like avoidant personalities, and people who are just running away from, everything.
Yeah.
So, like, it sounds harsh, but it seems like it's worked for you to be honest with yourself. And who were you blaming, and how did you get to that point of just full transparency with yourself?
I found, so when I said that I think it's important to tell our story, well,
Hmm.
there was a couple weeks where when I was telling my story, it was poor me. It was
Mm.
all about, oh, can you believe this happened to me? And can you believe he did this and he didn't do that? And can you believe the IRS and can believe my mom died? I mean, it was
Yeah.
everybody else. And I'm a really happy, positive, optimistic person. By nature, this is just who I am. And I found myself just constantly in this negative and feel bad for me, feel sorry for me.
Hmm.
And I was on the phone, actually sitting outside somewhere, and I was on the phone with somebody doing my blah 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 blah. And I caught myself and I thought, oh my gosh, if I keep telling the story like this, I'm going to stay the victim.
Right.
And I don't know why that thought came into my head, but as long as I'm the victim, somebody else is pulling the puppet strings.
Right.
And I was like,
You're not in control of your own life. Yeah.
right, somebody else is controlling my life. He, they, she, who, it was everybody
Hmm.
else but me. And so
Hmm.
on that phone call, I said to, it was a girlfriend, I'm sure, I just said, hold on a minute. What was my accountability in this?
Right.
And I started taking accountability. Like, did I, after I signed there, did I ask about our numbers? Did I stand up for myself? Did I speak up for
Hmm.
myself? Did I? Nope, nope, nope. And I was going down the things that I did or didn't do. And then when I realized when I did that, I became the victor of my story because now
Right.
I'm in control. And that was a defining moment for me. And I think it is for everybody else because as long as you're the victim, You're the victim,
Right.
you know?
It's like words are powerful and your brain's believing them as well
Right,
while you're talking.
right.
And thank you for giving us that perspective. And, you know, for those listening, you know, I'm still just blown away by the story of you standing up in front of 200 plus women and saying, hey, like, you know, I'm going through these
Right.
financial troubles and a divorce and
I'm
all these
homeless.
things.
Anybody have a
Yeah,
couch I can live
yeah,
on? I mean, it
right.
was,
So
yeah.
I'd love to hear from you how, and I'm sure it didn't happen overnight, but how did you get out of those circumstances? Um, like you've shared what's going on, but you're still at rock bottom. Like, how did you beat homelessness and financial strain and the grief of your mother, which I'm sure you're still managing to this day? But how did you rise and become so resilient?
Um, Part of it, two things. One was that my clients that I had as an no, I couldn't be an advertising agency anymore. I owed the
Hmm.
community of Austin media about $250,000. So I could
Hmm.
not be an ad agency anymore. But the station I used to work for KView, I'll never forget, they called me and said, come work for us. You know,
Hmm.
we know this was
Wow.
beyond, come. I couldn't because I didn't have the self-esteem. I didn't have,
Hmm.
my body was still out of it. But the clients that I had, even though I couldn't become an agency again, still called me for the creative, still called me for, which said a lot about me in business. So I still then, after I went through this downfall, I was able to start doing some creative work. And the girl that
Okay.
was my number one at the ad agency, she then became an ad agency and did the media buying. So it went through her. So we figured out a
Okay.
way. But then I started speaking to groups as well and sharing my story and started just really building myself, telling my story as I was walking through it.
Hmm.
And,
Yeah.
but the biggest thing is when I started focusing on why, why,
Hmm.
why didn't I speak up for myself? Why didn't I
Hmm.
stand up for my children? I mean,
Hmm.
why does your opinion or did your opinion so matter over my opinion? I
Right.
realized I had to figure that out because if I didn't figure that out, I was going to do it again, right?
Interesting. Yeah,
Right.
that makes a
So
lot of sense because yeah, you hear about people that say, I don't recognize the person that I was at that age. Like I'm a totally different person. And it sounds like a lot of people have to go back to the origin of that behavior. Um, and that instead of complaining or playing the victim, like you said, you found solutions and loopholes. I mean, that's
right,
incredible that you worked through like a client and that you had creative people. And it sounds like you utilize your network because you were honest with them, like, you know, about everything and that you were shedding your old self and stepping into like the new LB.
yeah, right.
Um, I do want to ask, like with the homelessness and the financial collapse, how did that affect your mental health? Because like having the career be like your identity,
Yeah.
right? Like, and how did you get through that? Like simply put, you know, because um I can't imagine, you know, like you're going through all these things emotionally, but you still have to figure out how to earn money.
So I was sleeping on couches. I was sleeping in guest
Hmm.
rooms. I wasn't under a bridge, so I did have places because I had good friends, you know. I friends honestly would I would go to lunch with friends and I'd walk away and there'd be a couple $100 in my purse.
Oh,
People were
wow.
giving me money. People were uh,
Hmm.
doing that, and I actually had about 42 or $50,000 worth of credit on credit cards.
Oh, wow.
So I started using that, which I didn't want to, but I
Yeah.
went, but because I had the business for so long,
Yeah.
so that I
Hmm.
did. And then as money started coming in, I was able to pay off. And there was a point
Hmm.
in time that I was so grateful that I'd had at least that, because I didn't have to file bankruptcy. That's the thing in Texas. I could just close the business. Now, if I filed bankruptcy, that would have all been gone. In Texas, you can
Yeah.
just close your business. I went to a bankruptcy attorney and he was like, "No." He goes, "We will just send everybody that you've closed the business." And my clients were awesome because um,
Mm.
one of the TV stations was complaining to one of my clients that, "Can you believe that this happened to her and she's doing this and this and this?" And the guy said, "It's not like she took the money and moved to Mexico. She's
Right.
lost everything. Shut up." You know, she's trying, she didn't leave town.
Yeah.
She didn't run away. She's
Yeah.
trying to build herself back.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so as I started using that, which I had forgotten about, that I started using that and then I started paying off. And so it just kind of morphed into each other. And I started getting more production jobs. So but I couldn't have done it if I hadn't worked on myself. Again,
Right.
my biggest thing was why. And I didn't want to go back and blame my mom or dad. At that point, I didn't care why I was like that.
Mm.
Um, I didn't want to spend my time because I had to move forward. I had to fix this.
Yeah.
So when I started realizing, I started looking into what was holding me back, and I realized it was fear. It was fear of
Hmm.
success. It was fear of failure. My two core fears, and there's about five. There's core fear of being worthy, being loved, being alone, being not good enough, and not trusting. Basically, any fear you can think of could fall into those five. So my
Hmm.
two big fears were not being good enough, which made sense, and not being worthy, which made sense. So that's why your opinion was more important than mine. That's
Right.
why when we would put together an incredible creative campaign for a client, and we would go and be putting our numbers down and getting it all together, and I would look at that and I would second guess it, and I would be like, maybe we should discount that a little bit. Maybe we should do more for less. And my team would be like, "What are you talking about? We make them hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. This is your
Yeah.
creative intelligence. This is your," but that was me not being good enough. So
Right.
once I figured that out, that that was secretly sabotaging me, then I took accountability, and then I knew that these core fears were just like biting my butt. That
Right.
then I was able to start outwitting them, as I call it.
Yeah. And if you don't mind me asking, LB, did you do that in therapy or just by yourself or through religion?
I did it by myself. I've never been to
Hmm.
a therapist. I did
Hmm.
it through reading. I did it through, and I'm also a part of an organization called Discovery, which every month or every other month, depending on how the schedule works out, I co-facilitate a program once a month. I've been doing it for like 12 years. It's been a long time.
Hmm.
So I started applying the tools that I was listening, getting from there, like what fears
Right.
were, and going, "Oh, wow, that's me." So
Yeah.
I would say if somebody's struggling with that, there's some great programs out there. Don't ask me what they are because I don't know except for Discovery, but someone can look. What is a workshop or program onto discovering my fears? I took part of the how I discovered my fears and created a course called Outwitting Fear, and it's online, outwittingfear.com. So people can walk through and get to the bottom of what their core fear is. Because again, once you have power over it, you have power over it.
Right. And
Yeah.
once you understand it too, like education, like then you can, tell yourself, these things instead of this autopilot voice. And, it sounds like you had low self-esteem like throughout your life.
You
And
would have
then,
never known it though if you would have met me,
right.
because I
And,
carried myself as if but I did.
well, it's like the worse the low self-esteem, like the bigger the mask. It's
Yes.
like the most
Yes.
successful people aren't super
Oh,
happy. So like they are, you know, putting on that costume, you know, every day and pretending. And I think that that's amazing that you were able to do the work actively. Like you really like did the homework, it sounds, on yourself. And
Yeah.
like, you know, in therapy, you can get to know your inner child and, like you said, like parents and things like that. But it comes to a certain age where you're like, okay, I've been on my own for a while. Like, what am I doing? Like,
Right.
that's, you know, why does this keep happening? And yeah, I just find it interesting that that you needed reassurance and a second opinion when you're like the successful businesswoman that's making so much money. Like it kind of gives
Yeah.
um, me hope in a way because it's like, okay, you know, um, even the most successful people still need to like look at what they're scared about, and anticipation is worse than the actual fear itself. So it's like all mental health that's going on.
Yeah, and I
Um
tell people, when they go, "Oh my God, it was horrible." Yes, it was the worst time of my life, but it ended up being the best time because
yeah.
if I hadn't hit rock bottom, I would have stayed. Even the man I'm with now, David, and
Mhm.
we've been together for years, and kindest, most supportive guy. There was a point in time he was like, "Can I write a check? Can I help you out? Can I do?" And I was, because I met him in the middle of all this, and I was like, "No, because
Yeah.
I'm going to stay here. I
Yeah.
can't be rescued. I have to figure this out." Because otherwise I'm going to repeat the same patterns, and I don't want to repeat these
Right.
patterns anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I mean, it sounds like you've completely broken the cycle because, like, I read a quote somewhere that said, I don't want you to save me, but I want you to stand by me while I'm saving myself. Because,
Is it?
and yeah, and I love that because, like, in relationships, especially as women, we do, you know, sometimes become codependent and financially dependent. And that's a form of abuse, like, you know, as well, like financial, like, abuse and, you know, depending on others and not taking control of your own life and then not being able to leave a relationship, like things like that. So I appreciate you saying that. I do want to shift gears a little bit and talk about your advertising and video production agency and like what you did like in that company and then what you're doing with those skills now.
Loved, loved, loved the company. We were in business 14 or 15 years, and like I said, we had the iconic, cool Amy's Ice Creams and Manja Pizza and Waterloo and Freebirds. We had all these great iconic, and anywhere except for Central Texas, people would go, "But who cares?" But for here, it was a big, big deal. And then the production side, like I said, we were working behind the scenes and red carpet junkets for Robert Rodriguez, for all the Spy Kids, for Sin City. We were doing
Mhm.
um, Hope Floats with Sandra Bullock's. I would
Right.
I would produce for Disney and ABC, and we were just all over. And I loved, loved, loved it. We would do red carpet junkets, and that we would be in a room, and the stars of the movies would come to us, and we'd interview them. So it was
Mhm.
just so much fun. And I just, that was part of my heartbreak, is when that
Yeah.
was going to be gone, because it was just so much fun. And now, again, what's worked out is I have about 4 or 5 clients at a time that I work with now,
Mhm.
and they're ones that I absolutely love and adore, and I have so much fun with. And so I've got one up in Amarillo, and I've got a couple in Austin, and I've got one that does as a law firm, that they're all
Mhm.
over the place. And now production as well. I work with a company that I am their media. I do their media, but also I'm the face of their company.
Mhm.
And the LBTJ group, the T, he and I've
Mhm.
reconnected. He was a director, cameraman, the other head of the production
Mhm.
side of it. And we've just reconnected and are talking about doing some big things together. So it's just
Mhm.
come full circle, but I'm so excited about it because, again, I'm in a whole different space. I'm in a whole different
Yeah.
game, a whole different head game. And my confidence is 100% there that I didn't have before. So I'm really
Right.
excited
Yeah.
about this next chapter. And
Yeah.
um, I'm getting older and people keep, I should be at the point of retiring, but I don't want to. I'm
Yeah.
enjoying, I don't think I ever will. I'll be doing something
Yeah,
always.
well, like you said, I mean, it's like a big part of your identity,
It
but
is.
not in the same way that it used to be. It's not like filling up every, bucket, like of, looking good or putting on a mask. It's filling up like the bucket, like of your soul in a way, like of like serving and helping others and having a purpose. So, I think that's really exciting. And at the end of this, I would love for you to share where our listeners can find that information. I
Okay.
do want to shift into our next topic that I've been really excited to talk about. Um, so, you are a speaker and author helping women rise after trauma, and do you have a nonprofit or you work with a nonprofit protecting kids from exploitation? And can you
So,
tell us about that?
yes. So, and then I'm going to say one quick thing go backwards for one quick second
Hmm.
is that if somebody's listening and says it's too late, I'm too old, I was 55
Hmm.
when I figured this out.
Oh,
So
wow.
it, and so it's 10 years later. So I just turned 66, but it's never too late. And it's the best role model example you can give your children. I don't care how
Hmm.
old you are, but if they see mom or dad shift their life to the positive, because their kids' lives are
Yeah.
going to go through trauma or go something.
Yes.
But if they did, I can do it. And what better role model? So please, if you're saying to yourself, I can't, I'm too old, no, you're not. So,
That's such a good point, Albie, because kids, watch, they don't really like talk, like, or
no,
ask.
yeah,
So I agree, like, even seeing, my mom be like a first immigrant teacher, like it's like at a young age I knew, okay, I can study if she can. Like it's such a simple thing of action, but it really like embeds in the child's mind and they remember as an adult, even if they forget about it as a
right.
child. So
Right. So for
thank you for
my
sharing
kids,
that.
yeah, for my kids, it was quickly like, mom didn't stand up for us. Mom didn't stand up for herself. Well,
Yeah.
that's embedded in their heads. Well, now that
Yeah.
they see I am standing up and I am
Hmm.
taking charge and I am doing things, I'm not mean
Yeah.
about it, but they're like, okay, so
Yeah.
that's a new story. And they're embracing it as
Hmm.
adults, which is the best thing I could have ever done. So,
Yeah. I
so
love that it doesn't have to be this negative story forever. It's like
yeah,
you can reshape it and like identify it as something super positive. I think that that's such an interesting perspective. And you look amazing for 66, I have to
thank you.
say.
Thank you. That is from my mom and a little Botox right here. But okay, a lot
Botox
of
help.
Botox right here. So
Uh,
nonprofit. So
yeah.
Texas Women in Business, we're celebrating our 15th year and it is a 501(c)(3) and started it with four friends and then it turned in we got 25 ladies together and then had a happy hour with about 138 ladies and said, should we do this? And they said yes. And next Thursday, we're celebrating our 15th year, which is really going to be exciting. So it is a 501(c)(3). And
Mm,
when I went to the governor's office and talking about awareness and exploitation of the kids, when I found out about the human trafficking side
right.
and then the online exploitation of our kids, I didn't experience that, as a but what I can say as a 13-year-old, 14-year-old, 15-year-old, I was the tallest, I was gangly, I was
Hmm.
not the prettiest. My girlfriend
Yeah.
Kelly was the prettiest. And if
Hmm.
somebody would have paid attention to me, we didn't even have these back then. If somebody would have
Yeah.
paid attention to me, I would have been all over it. So that is so accessible. This is the new white van. We put our kids to
Yeah.
bed at night with a predator and
Yeah.
they don't know it. And the thing is parents don't realize it. I have so many parents that their kids have been exploited or sextortion and they say, if
Hmm.
I'd only known, I should have
Yeah.
had this conversation. So we're doing that. And so Not on Our Watch is an initiative of Texas Women in Business. And I did it as an initiative because I didn't want to do another 501(c)(3). So it was like, ugh. So it'll eventually really take on a life of its own. And it is not on our watch Texas or not on our watch TX, but
Mhm.
we have Louisiana, Mississippi, Arkansas, Oklahoma, Florida, all asking us to
Wow.
come to their state.
Yeah.
So we're going to have to change it to just not on our watch or not on our watch world. Or so we're in
Yeah.
the, yeah.
Yeah, and I just want to say for our audience listening, LB and I were talking offline about that Texas is one of the biggest human trafficking states in the US. And it goes back and forth with a few other states. And, you know, that's something I didn't know. And I think it's horrifying. And, you know, I think you said a statistic when we initially talked. What was the statistic that I think you said like and my editor can fix
Okay.
this. It was like something like 50 567% or something. Can you
Right.
talk to
So
that?
coming out of COVID, um,
Yeah.
online exploitation of our children went up 567%. And that
That's
was coming out of COVID. So you
yeah.
can imagine where it is now. And 1 out of 5 kids last year said they were approached by a predator online. And here's another weird, sad statistic is 34% of all 13-year-olds think it's okay to share a nude photo. Yeah,
It's just so crazy because we come from such different times, you
we
know,
do.
like it's, you know, I think Gen Z and Gen Alpha, there's so many positives of technology, but there's so many negatives too, because, you know, I was playing outside at 13,
Right,
like, you
right.
know,
We didn't even
and
think about it. We were kicked out of the house. I remember my
exactly.
mom saying, "Don't come back until the street lights turn on, or if you're bleeding or have to go number two.
Yeah,
Otherwise, you're gone." And we
it's so
were.
true.
It's so
Yeah.
true. So,
And yeah,
so that's why we started like thinking about the mama bears, all the women in business
yeah.
that we work with across the state, because now Texas Women in Business is in Austin, San Antonio, Houston, and Dallas. And so we're bringing that awareness. And again, we're wanting to go global because if parents aren't even aware, they can't protect their kids. If kids aren't aware that a predator is watching them, waiting for that window of opportunity, they have to know the tools. And I think the best advice, because we do expert panels. So if you've got an audience
Hmm.
member that says, come to our city, we bring in FBI, cybersecurity, Secret Service to come in and talk about it. But
Hmm.
the best advice I heard was from a mom whose daughter who killed herself, who was a victim
Hmm.
of sextortion. And sextortion is when they'll send a child, a 15, 16-year-old girl or boy will send a picture or video to somebody that they think is a 15, 16-year-old boy or girl. Ends
Hmm.
up being that the person on the other end is a man or woman, 55, however old.
Hmm.
And then they say, send me $1,000 or I'm going to share this with everybody.
Right.
And the kid gets bribed or gets blackmailed. And so many kids don't know that there's an out, and they're so embarrassed they'll kill themselves. And
Yeah.
so this one mom of a young lady that killed herself said, we always say to our kids, don't, don't, don't. So when they do something, they're afraid to tell us because we've said don't,
Mm.
and they're going to get in trouble. And she
Mhm.
said, I wish I would have said to my daughter, don't, don't, don't. But if you do, come to me and I will help you.
Right.
I will protect you.
Yeah.
We will do, I don't care, day or night, 24 hours a day, come to me and we will fix it together. She said, if I would have
Yeah.
had that conversation, my daughter might be alive today.
Oh,
So,
that's just so tragic. And um, yeah, I think that well, let me just say this. So this, how old was this person that passed away, this child?
I would, I've heard of many, many, but I would say she was probably 15.
Oh, I mean,
Yeah.
because that is child pornography. And
Yeah.
that's something that that child probably didn't realize, that any person sharing images or video of sexual acts of a child being 15 years old, they're the ones in trouble, not the child. So, like, like I can see why her parent is like, wanting to advocate that of like, hey, like, yes, you may have done something that's not great, but like, if you're in trouble, like, please come to me because as an adult, I can fix it. And I guess like that's my next question. What are some of the signs that parents can look out for, if you know, that their child might be like in this type of relationship online, or that they are in trouble? Like, was this parent able to, give at these talks with like the FBI and, certain cybersecurity? Are there any signs that parents can look out for? And then are there any signs that kids can look out for if they are talking to a predator to
Right.
know that it's a predator?
Well, and I'm going to answer it kind of in a circle. The
Mm-hmm.
detectives say, talk to your kids. When you're teaching them how to brush your teeth, start talking to your kids, because kids
Mm-hmm.
get on the internet so much earlier than ever before. So first of all, and
Mm-hmm.
having that conversation. If your child becomes very isolated, not wanting to
Mm-hmm.
share what's going on in their world, um, not wanting to share who they're talking to, not wanting you to see their phone, that's way, way good things to be looking out for. But again, and I'm not saying this is, I'm not blaming parents, but our kids are all on their phones all the time. So it's hard
Mm-hmm.
for us to know, because even at the dinner table, kids are texting, kids are, and so the world has gotten a little more isolated. I was talking to a director of a school the other day. It's a private school in Austin, and they did take away cell phones at the school. And
Mm-hmm.
the she said the lunchroom now is so loud. And I
Mm,
laughed. I go, what do you mean? She said, because we didn't even dawn on us at lunchtime. They were all like this on their phones, even if it was the girl next to them. So the kids are
mhm.
always on the phone. She goes, so now they're talking to each other. So,
Yeah.
so it's hard to find what those signals are. One thing I thought was a great tip, two great tips from a couple detectives. One is, if your child is in the bathroom texting and doing things, because we have a tendency,
Mm,
we'll open the bedroom door, hey, it's time
right.
for dinner. But kids have figured out you're not going to open the door if they're in the bathroom.
Yeah.
So if they're in there, that's a trigger of
Mm,
something's going on. The other
yeah.
thing is, if your child is talking to somebody, or this is a recommendation for the child, if they're being going back and forth with somebody texting, the
Mhm.
detectives say, immediately say, hey, let's FaceTime. And
Mm,
it's really hard to have that quick. And if someone says, I don't know how, or give me a minute, FaceTime is like that. You can't
it's
hide
like
behind FaceTime.
catfishing.
Right,
Yeah.
right,
It's like 101, like, why can't someone get on a call?
right.
And then it's like the first meeting is in person and you don't know what you're getting.
You
Like,
don't know what
that's
you're getting.
so
Right.
scary. I mean, I am a big crime junkie and I've watched so many documentaries about kids meeting a predator in person and it doesn't look anything like what they
Uh-uh.
were talking to, which
Not at
is why
all.
this education is so important. Um, and I had
And
no idea about the bathroom thing. Like, that blows my mind. I didn't even
but think
think of
about
that.
that,
Yeah.
right? Another tip for the kids is, if you're if you're gaming and someone says,
Mhm,
"Hey, let's go into a private chat," no,
mhm.
do not go into private
Oh,
chat. If
right.
somebody says, let's meet, if somebody says, give me your address, where do you go to school? If they want personal information, don't give it. You don't know who
Right.
that person is. Um,
Yeah.
if if somebody friends you and you don't know who they are, or they say, I'm friends with Zoe and I'm friends with
Mhm.
Kelly, reach out to you, reach out
Yeah.
to Kelly, find out really if they are, if they
Right.
know who they are.
Because
Yeah.
everything's online, they've stalked your whole life, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
So it's like they know who Kelly is, like the
Right.
friend or whatever. Or like, I mean, we could talk for hours about grooming and predatory behaviors of like, you know, predators finding coincidences, like, oh, they know that you like baseball, like they are now the baseball expert, or you like makeup, guess what? They are a makeup artist. Like,
And
so there's so many different things. And I wonder if, LB, if you could talk to, I'm very interested with middle America being these huge human trafficking hubs. Why do you think Texas in particular is a big human trafficking hub? And also, what types of human trafficking are there? Because I think we think of stranger danger and a white van. So I mean, I would, if you know any of this, I would be interested, and I think our audience would be interested.
so Texas is always close to the top in trafficking because of our borders, and
Mm-hmm.
Houston being a port. Uh, Houston is the number one city
Oh,
because of the port. Anywhere that
right.
there's ports and things, why? It's so much money. It's a
Mhm.
multi-billion-dollar industry, and it can be anywhere from labor trafficking, sex
Mhm.
trafficking, child trafficking. It's huge money making opportunity. And even with the people that are, first of all, it's happening everywhere. So right now, somebody in your audience is saying, well, it's not happening in my town, middle America,
Yeah.
small town. Yes, it is. Why it
Yeah.
is because this and our laptops that we're on right now
Hmm.
are all over the world. So it
Hmm.
is happening. It's happening.
Yeah.
There was in Dripping Springs, which is just about 45 minutes from where we live, huge human trafficking bust in one of the nicest neighborhoods, gated communities in that. And people were like, wait,
Right.
what? What?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so it's also it's prostitution. You know,
Hmm.
that's trafficking. Um,
I did not know about the labor trafficking. Like, I had no idea about that. Like, I'm
so
gonna
they
research that after this.
Right. They bring people in, in semis. They bring people in.
Hmm.
They hide them and they bring them in, and then they traffic them in the sense of they can't leave. They have to work for minimal, I mean, tiny pay. They're
Hmm.
mistreated. They're brought in being told that it's going to be amazing in America or wherever they're being trafficked,
Yeah.
not just America.
Yeah.
It's going to be
Yeah.
amazing. Little do they know they're held up in these crappy places. They
Yeah.
they're in they have to pay back whoever it is that they're working for so much for
Hmm.
bringing them in that they have nothing. They can't
Hmm.
leave. It's horrible. I know
Yeah.
in Texas a few years ago, the stat was it was over, I think it was like 313,000 cases of trafficking happen every day, or trafficking is happening. Um, yeah. And
It's just
another
so
thing, yeah.
crazy.
And another thing is if your town has big festivals and events like we have F1, South by,
Hmm.
ACL, we have all these big events. Well, that's when a lot of it happens. A lot of it happens during those times. So,
Yeah, it's crazy to think like how many people you may have passed in your lifetime that are being trafficked or that are the predators. And like, we've seen the movie Taken with like Liam Neeson, and like that was in like Paris, and like,
yeah,
but it's like it's happening in everywhere, in every single small city or town in the US and around the world, like you said.
yeah.
And
And
I
that's why,
know you,
and then,
yeah,
like you're
sorry.
saying, trafficking is happening everywhere. Why we focused on online is because, again, every home, every child,
Yeah.
99.9% is open to that. So we're like,
Yeah.
okay, this is everybody. We got to
Yeah.
do something. Yeah.
And what really stuck with me is when you said you're sending your kid to bed with a predator.
Yeah.
That like gave me shivers down my spine because it's so true. Like, I mean, I got my first cell phone when I was like 13, 14, but it was like a dumb phone. Like, it didn't have like everything that an iPhone has. So I was like playing Snake or something, like,
Right.
but it's like now, like, there's so many avenues. And yeah, parents definitely need to be monitoring like their child's phone use, and let kids be kids, like you said, like taking away a phone at lunchtime and hearing everyone like talking and noise and happiness. Like that's part of being a child. And we're coming to the end of the podcast. I would love for you to show our guests what you showed me at the beginning. Yeah. I'll go ahead and let you introduce it.
Yes. So, not on our watch, Texas, but not on our watch. We got with the Girl Scouts, and this patch, is it backwards for you? Probably backwards for you. Is it backwards for you?
I can't really tell because the screen's a bit blurry, but
There we go.
oh no, it's not backwards. It's
Okay.
good.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's not, and it's the Girl Scouts of Central Texas.
Hmm.
We did it with them, and these are the representatives of the different, the diversity and the age groups
Hmm.
of high school, middle, and younger kids. And it's
Yeah.
basically stop, not on our watch, putting their hands up,
Hmm.
stop. And
Yeah.
we approached the Girl Scouts, and this patch and curriculum that we worked with the National Center of Missing and Exploited Children, NCMEC,
Hmm.
launched last month to up to 1 million girls. So 1
Wow.
million girls have the opportunity to learn how to protect themselves online as a Girl Scout, but also, part of the curriculum is they're going to be teaching the other girls. So that we want the girls to
Yeah.
be able to, if they're having lunch with their girlfriend and their friend says, "Hey, this guy reached out to me, we're going to go meet." And the girl goes, "I don't think that's a good idea. I just
Yeah.
learned this." And so
Yeah.
during January, February, they're going to push this as the patch they're going to push because that is trafficking month. So it just launched.
January is human trafficking like awareness month.
Right, right. So the Girl Scouts, this will be the patch they push, and
Hmm.
but it just launched 2 weeks ago, and you're the first person to see it because I just received them.
Amazing. I feel so honored.
I
I
know.
mean,
I'm so
honestly,
proud of this. I'm so
it's
proud of it.
very striking, like in terms of, the image of like, it feels like a very
Right.
neighborhood watch and
Yeah.
diversity. And yeah, it really speaks to the mission of protecting our youth. So
And
I
I
think that's amazing work that you're doing.
and it was their design team. I gave the idea of the hands, but they said
Hmm.
it has to be bright, it has to be fun because the girls want to be
Right.
we want them to be drawn to it. If it
Yes.
had been real stoic and thing, they'd be like, no. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
no, that's really important. When I think of there's so many like children nonprofits, and I work in the nonprofit industry, and the logos are pretty boring. Like, so
Yeah.
I love that they're thinking of that. And I'll be coming to the end of the podcast. Um, I would love to ask you the question. We've talked about so many different subjects from, domestic violence to financial loss to grief of your mother, to, working on yourself and learning your fears. You are a true survivor. You've been through so much in your life. And now you're helping others, women and children. Can you answer our question that we ask every guest? Why do you think you're a survivor?
Why I think I'm a survivor is I'm not really. That's a really. You told me that was going to be the question, and I forgot what how.
You
I
can
think
take
I
your
was.
time. You can
I no.
pause.
I think I was tired of being an imposter. I was tired of being
Hmm.
an imposter and putting that fake mask on, and on the inside going like I'm
Hmm.
not good enough. I'm this. I'm that. I'm whatever. And I really wanted to be okay with me. I wanted to be my
Hmm.
authentic self, and I can truly say for the last several years since I've walked through this, I've been as much as in my head 100% true to myself. And um and I said to David when we got together when I was going through all this, I may say something, but it's going to be from me, not trying to be a nice guy to you or make sure you're happy. I'm going to speak from me, what's important for me. And if that doesn't work for you, that's okay. 'Cause then you're not my person, and that's okay. But I have to
Hmm.
do it for me because the only person I'm going to hurt is myself if I keep trying to make
Right.
everybody else happy. And it's been an amazing, amazing journey. And one quick thing, and I know we're out of time, is the other thing I did as I started catching the negative talk I was doing to myself, I one day caught myself telling myself I was an idiot. And I went, "What?" And
Mhm.
I started listening that I was
Mm.
stupid, I was an idiot, I was dumb, I was doing all these things that I had heard some from somebody, but I was doing that to
Mhm.
myself. And so I put my antenna up and I started trying to really catch myself. So every time I said something negative to myself, I called it my inner critic and I changed it to my inner cheerleader. And I would be like,
Right.
"You're not dumb, you just don't know how to do it yet." Or, "You're not stupid.
Right.
You're one of the smartest people I know, you crazy girl." Then I got to the point where
Yeah.
I would just go, "Pfft." And so
Right. It
I
becomes loud.
yeah, then I just didn't even, the minute I would do it, I go, "Ah, what do you know?" I can honestly, and I'm an exaggerator, but I'm not exaggerating. I do not remember the last time I said something negative to myself about myself. I don't.
Love that.
And I think that is so important because if you're telling yourself
Mhm.
you're stupid and dumb and not good enough and whatever, you're just opening the door for anybody else if that's what you're believing. So I think
Right.
turning your inner
Yeah.
critic to your inner cheerleader, if you're not cheering for yourself, nobody else is.
I love that. Thank you so much for everything today, LB.